All right, let's move to work session item number 2. This is docket 2022.11.099, Montana Dakota Utilities Company, otherwise known as MDU. We're here to consider the application of MDU for authority to establish increased rates for electric service and to act on their interim request. Mr. Fink or Ms. Umstead? Mr. Fink.
Morning, President Brown, Commissioners. As you mentioned, before you today is docket 2022.11.099. Montana Dakota filed an application for authority to establish increased rates for its electric service with the Commission on November 4th, 2022. In its application, Montana Dakota filed an interim request. I won't go into great detail, however, I want to provide some background with interim request in a general rate case proceeding. During the rate case procedure, there's testimony, intervener testimony, discovery, briefing, hearing. It's a 270-day process or 9 months. Staff has a vigorous process and abundance of information to make an informed decision. Interims are a little different. Generally, interveners don't comment on the interim. Staff can, however, look at statute and rules to make a decision. Both the rule and statute were included in your packet. The first, Montana Code annotated 69-3-304, is the statute regarding interim increases and decreases. It states that an order of the Commission approving or denying a temporary rate increase or decrease shall be based upon consistent standards appropriate for the nature of the case pending. Next is Administrative Rule 38.5.506, criteria for approval of request. This rule states consideration of an application to increase rates on an interim basis in a general rate case proceeding. A general rate case increase proceeding will be guided by generally established principles of utility rate regulation. Okay. One of the generally established principles of utility rate regulation, there's a term out there in the regulatory world called the regulatory contract. It's recognized throughout the United States as a fair statement of the obligations of commissions and utilities when it comes to rate of return regulation. In general, the regulated company is allowed the opportunity, not a guarantee, to earn a fair return on its investment and is protected from competition. And in return, the company is required to provide service to all who need it, and the services be of good quality, safe, and reasonably priced. In looking at the interim request, one of the things staff does is look at to see if the utility is earning a fair return. The return staff measures is the return to shareholders, or also known as the return on equity. There are two seminal Supreme Court decisions of generally established principles of rate regulation that strongly guide this commission's ROE decision. Return on equity decisions. I won't go into great detail about those decisions. However, when looking at MDU's financials, their 2020 and 2021 rate of returns were 5.29 and 5.52% respectively. Those figures are well below their authorized returns established in the previous electric docket 2018.09.060.
Ms. Umstead.
I'm going to turn over to Brooke for.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, President Brown, Commissioners. Overall, with that background, staff recommends approving the requested interim revenue increase of $1,716,219. This is approximately 16% of the overall request in its application. The average residential customer bill using 792 kilowatt hours per month would see an increase of $2.33 or 2.6%. As a reminder, customers' interim rates are refundable with interest if the commission ultimately approves permanent rates that are lower than the interim rates. And thank you for your time today, and Grant and I are both available if you have any questions.
Mr. Fink.
President Brown, there's one non-substantive change that needs to be made to the interim draft order. It's on paragraph 1, line 4, where it says revenue increase of 10 sorry. A 10 point, $10,499,674. That last 674 needs to be changed to 415.
Mr. Fink, I do have one question also about the draft interim order. Paragraph 5. I just want to confirm that, I'm sorry, paragraph 6. I just want to confirm that since the interim request reflects a 9.25% return on equity increase, that is correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Vice President Fielden.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the interim rate put forth in docket 2022.1109 and approve the this interim order.
Is there a second, Commissioner Bukacek?
I second.
All right. We have a motion that's been seconded. Discussion?
Mr. President.
Thank you, President Brown. So this is interesting. It's an interesting rate case because we were told that if we close the Sydney coal plant, rates would come down. There was testimony that the Sydney coal plant was expensive. It was at a higher rate than energy that could be brought in from out of state through the MISO market. I heard testimony in this very room from the residents of Sydney and Savage that they didn't mind paying higher rates because they couldn't have the coal mine in Savage shut down to where they'd lose a tremendous tax base to the school. We lost jobs in Sydney, closing the coal plant down. We cannot tell the power company how to run their business. But when we listen to testimony and they say we have to shut the plant down because it's not economically viable and we're going to lower rates, and they do so, and they come back here for a rate increase, I'm struggling to how I'm going to explain this to the community after what they've been through. Thousands of miles were driven from community members to come here to testify. It took hours to listen to everybody. How am I going to explain that we shut this plant down to lower rates? We lost the jobs and the tax base, and now we're having a rate increase. How am I going to do that? So I'm not going to support this. I explained that we have an energy shortage in the Western United States. Okay. We're struggling to get power. We shut this plant down. We promised we're going to lower rates. And here we are asking for a rate increase. So my vote today is no.
Thank you, Commissioner Pinochi. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am going to, I'm inclined to oppose the motion for similar reasons to Commissioner Pinochi, but not the same necessarily. I have several questions relative to the amounts of the rate increase and the interim rate increase. I appreciate greatly the information that Grant gave regarding the statutes and the reference to the under-earning. And of course, we are bound to not allow one of the utilities, or force one of the utilities, I should say, into an under-earning capacity. I have several questions about the amount of this particular rate increase that's requested, even in the interim basis, recognizing that it is refundable with interest should the commission approve a smaller amount than this. But I'm just there are so many issues, so many unanswered questions on my mind that I think it's greatly premature for myself to vote to allow this interim rate increase, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Donnell. Additional discussion, questions, Vice President Fielding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hear the concerns of my colleagues loud and clear, and I support looking into this matter very carefully as part of the general rate case. I will note that the requested increase in the general rate case for MDU is over 19%. It would be an over 19% increase. This interim rate that staff has recommended is a 2.66% increase, which I find reasonable given inflation and the increased costs of just about everything these days. 2.66 seems very much within reason, but I do want to take a very hard look in the general rate case at these other factors pointed out by my colleagues here on the commission.
Thank you, Vice President Fielder. Additional discussion? Additional discussion? Seeing none, I think we'll do a roll call vote on this matter. Vice President Fielder.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
No.
Commissioner Pinochi.
No.
Commissioner Bukacek.
Yes.
And I will vote aye or yes. So motion carries 3-2 vote. Thank you, colleagues.